Well, welcome everybody. My name is Ryan Drysdale, the Associate Director for the All-In Campus Democracy Challenge. I use he, him, his pronouns. Part of my role is managing partnerships with government partners like the Department of State or Secretary of State's office, particularly for our state campus voting challenges, which we'll discuss more today. And we really appreciate you joining us for this 30-minute coffee chat, a quick presentation about nonpartisan state campus voting challenges, including time for questions for me and my colleague, Tiffany Chong Lawson, the Director, Bureau of Campaign Finance and Civic Engagement at the Pennsylvania Department of State, who will be joining us to speak shortly. We will be recording this session and sharing the recording and slides after the presentation. And we do have the live transcript function if you want that. Clicking on the three dots and more button, you can access that by clicking on live transcript. So over the next 20 minutes, I'll provide a brief overview of the All-In Campus Democracy Challenge and our nonpartisan state campus voting challenge initiatives in partnership with departments of state, secretaries of state, and reputable state and national nonpartisan nonprofits. Then we'll hear from Tiffany Chong Lawson, Director, Bureau of Campaign Finance and Civic Engagement at the Pennsylvania Department of State, about the partnership between the All-In Challenge and the Pennsylvania Department of State on the Pennsylvania Campus Voting Challenge. And finally, we'll have time for questions. Please feel free to add questions to the chat during the presentation and we'll respond as we can. And while this coffee chat is only scheduled for 30 minutes, Tiffany and I both can go beyond 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time for questions if needed. And before we get too far in, I want to give a little overview of what the All-In Challenge is, including the team. We're a small team of 6, but mighty, that lead a lot of national-facing work in terms of college and higher education democratic engagement. So just to give you a snapshot of who else is on the team that works on these efforts with myself. And in terms of what the All-In Challenge is, we're a national nonpartisan nonprofit organization that's a part of Civic Nation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. We have campuses participating in our program in all 50 states, including the District of Columbia. You can see we currently have 812 participating campuses, but with an enrollment of nearly 9 million students. We provide campuses with support and structure and recognition to institutionalize nonpartisan democratic engagement, which we define as civic learning, political engagement, and voter participation. And we'll touch on some of the ways we do that, but some of the core components are supporting campuses to develop a democratic engagement action plan. Think of that as a campus strategic plan to implement democratic engagement and voter participation efforts. We review these plans and provide feedback to campuses to help them strengthen their plans and really institutionalize this work on campus. We work with campuses to access their campus voter registration and voter turnout data through Nsolve, which I'll touch on Nsolve here in a couple slides. And some of the other initiatives that we work on are athletic conference challenges. You might be familiar with the Big 10 or Big 12 campus voting challenge. We have an Ivy League, SoCon, so Division I to Division III, working with athletic conferences to create a community of practice for campuses to come together and learn and develop programs. And I see Zachary Holder on this call from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, who's been involved in that work in the Big 10. We also have a president's commitment to full student voter participation that in leading up to the 2020 election, we had more than 300 campus presidents and chancellors sign on to that public commitment. We have the allintovote.org website. It's a one-stop voter engagement website to register to vote, request an absentee ballot, find your polling place. That's a free resource for campuses to use. We manage various community of practices and convenings, including a historically Black college and universities community of practice. And we've done a lot of work around organizing and participating in state voting summits, which have done a lot of that work with my colleague Johanna, who's also on the call in the state of Pennsylvania. So that's just a brief overview of what the All-In Challenge is, and from a campus's perspective, how it works. There's 5 key action items that we ask a campus to participate in. And one key thing should stress is it's free to participate in the All-In Challenge. There's no cost for a campus to join and participate. So we ask a campus to commit and join the All-In Challenge, simple online form. that is completed by a campus employee. So we only work with campus faculty, staff, administrators. While we do have some engaging programs with students, our main points of contact are with those campus employees to help institutionalize this throughout the campus. We then work with campuses to assemble a campus voting coalition that includes student affairs, residence life, academic affairs, the president's office, local and community partners, and importantly, local election officials to develop and maintain those relationships to support student voters in those communities. And then develop and implement an action plan every 2 years, which I've touched on. And we have action plan guides, example action plans, webinars, various resources, including that feedback from our staff to help campuses develop those action plans. And then authorize Insolve and share those campus Insolve reports with All In, which I'll dive into what that all means in a moment. And finally, just really the main reason we're here is to earn recognition at the national level, as well as the state level in states where we have state campus voting challenges. And so talking a little bit more about Insolve, it stands for the National Study of Learning, Voting, and Engagement. And it's a free, which I really want to stress, free study managed by the Institute for Democracy in Higher Education at Tufts University. The data is only produced for midterm and presidential elections, so it's available every 2 years for campuses. And these reports are FERPA compliant. So student privacy is really the core of what IDHE does, where they aggregate the data, de-identify it, and put together these reports. So we'll share a sample report later with you that you can see. And there's no identifiable information for students. And there's no partisan information either based off of registration numbers or percentages by partisan affiliation. It's just what voter turnout rate, voter registration rate, and vote method where that is tracked in terms of did they vote in person, early, by mail. And this data is really important for campuses to assess their work they're doing on campus, and then leads into the recognition component of the All In Challenge at the national and state level, using those numbers of voter registration rates, voter turnout rates, including the voter turnout rate change from the previous similar election. So the 2020 reports that will be sent to campuses this September will also have data from the 2016 election, so they can see that change and potential growth that they've had from election to election. So that's just a little deep dive. We could do a whole hour talking about Insolve, but wanted to provide some grounding there, as that is central to the work we do. In terms of the awards and recognition, every 2 years, the All In Challenge hosts a national award ceremony, and that 2 years aligns with the every 2 year cycle that Insolve reports are released to campuses. So typically in the odd numbered year. And in the previous 2 award ceremonies that the All In Challenge hosted in 2017 and 2019, we hosted those in person. This year we'll do a virtual event over 3 days from November 8th through the 10th, with the 8th being our main award ceremony, recognizing the best in class with the highest voter turnout and highest voter registration based off their institution type, whether it's 2-year institution, 4-year, and the institution size, small, medium, and large. And then on November 9th, we'll have our State Challenge Award ceremony, where we'll have about 30 minutes of programming for all of the states that have a state campus voting challenge, and then state-specific breakout rooms, where then those state-specific awards can be administered by our partners as well. And then November 10th is related to the athletic conference challenges that I briefly mentioned, which will take a very similar model to the state campus voting challenge, providing space for those athletic conferences to recognize folks from the work in the 2020 election. And some of the awards that we're able to do, I mentioned the ones based off Insolve from voter registration and voter turnout numbers for the 2020 election. We also have individual awards based on a nomination process from students, faculty, staff, administrators, to coaches and local election officials. Really excited to recognize the individuals who've played key roles in the campus community, as well as seals of recognition. So if a campus has a voter turnout rate within a certain range, they will receive a seal. We haven't solidified those ranges yet, but in 2016, if a campus had a 50 to 60% turnout rate, they had a bronze seal, 60 to 70 a seal, all silver, all the way up. So campuses will be eligible to earn those seals. And that's really how our awards program works. which then leads into the Pennsylvania Campus Voting Challenge, which we'll hear in just a few moments from Tiffany about, is this effort to also have awards at the state level. With more than 800 campuses participating at the national level, we are only able to give so many awards out at that national level, and saw an opportunity to expand our awards program at the state level, which we piloted in 2018 in Florida and Iowa, and since then have expanded the program, as you can see, to 18 state and city challenges. We do have 2 city challenges in Boston and Chicago, and 16 state challenges. You'll see the states in bold. Those represent states where we have an official partnership with a signed MOU with that state's Department of State or Secretary of State. And we currently have 7 of those with bipartisan representation in those partnerships. And so we'll have these 18 state and city challenge recognition programs on November 9th, and have the possibility of expanding to more of those if we can launch additional ones by September 1st of this year. If not, this program is already set to continue for the 2022 election and beyond. So all of these challenges will continue to run, and our goal is to have a state campus voting challenge in all 50 states plus the District of Columbia by the 2024 election. A couple quick points I want to mention before turning it over to Tiffany is we've seen some really important engagement after the launch of these state challenges. Michigan was the first one to launch in November of 2019 with their Department of State. And in the following months, we saw a 50% increase in the number of campuses participating in the All-In Challenge from Michigan. And importantly, 50% of those campuses were 2-year institutions, community colleges, which are already underrepresented in our program. And having that partnership with the state really helped to bring in those institutions. Additionally, we saw a similar result in Pennsylvania after the launch of the Pennsylvania Campus Voting Challenge in February of 2020, where we had a 40% increase of campuses participating in the All-In Challenge and saw more community colleges joining the fold. And so pause there. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, who's been a pleasure to work with over the past few years on a number of initiatives, in particular the Pennsylvania Campus Voting Challenge, so she can share her perspective from the department side of working with the All-In Challenge and some of the efforts that they've been underway. And then we'll have some time for questions and answers.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Ryan, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. So I'll really quickly give everybody an overview of our Campus Voting Challenge. So we do have 3 award categories for both 4-year and 2-year institutions, and that's based on student voter participation in the November 2020 general election. So as Ryan shared, we do use data from NSOLVE, the National Study of Learning, Voting, and Engagement. So the 3 award categories are 1, highest campus voter turnout, 2, most improved campus voter turnout, and 3, highest student voter registration rate. And as Ryan shared, we'll be participating in the All-In Challenge's National Awards ceremony on November 9th to present those awards to our campuses here in Pennsylvania. So a quick summary, and I think actually some of this data is actually higher than what I'm about to report, but we currently have around 68 campuses participating across the Commonwealth. 54% of the Pennsylvania campuses are currently participating in the challenges. So that's 54% of campuses in Pennsylvania. So we're very excited about that. And we want to see that number continue to grow as we move into the second year of the challenge, or the second cycle of the challenge. 66% of Pennsylvania students are at a campus in the challenge. So that's, just throw the numbers out there. That's 458,530 students out of a total of 692,047 students. So I said 54% of our campuses participate, but most of the students that study at one of our campuses in Pennsylvania are already a part of a school or campus that's a part of the challenge. So that's really exciting for us here at the Department of State. So now that I've given you a little bit of background, I just want to talk about kind of how this came to be and our, the work that we get to engage with the All-In Challenge and to carry out our Pennsylvania Campus Voting Challenge. So this kind of evolved for us back in 2019, I would say. We started the conversation with Ryan and the team at All In. And we're kind of really evaluating kind of what our capacity was as an agency. As you can see behind me, I have our banner for our Governor's Civic Engagement Award. We had already made a commitment to youth civic engagement back in 2020, the school year of 2017 to 2018. We had launched the Governor's Civic Engagement Award, and that award is specifically for high school students. So when Ryan and the All In team came to us, with the idea of doing something in the realm of higher ed, we were definitely intrigued because we already are in the youth civic engagement space. And I would say for, other Secretary of State's offices on this phone, or other departments of states, or election offices that are part of this conversation today. One thing that I know for all of us that is always a challenge are questions around capacity, right? Because just like many of the agencies across the country, Department of State has historically had more staff. And so we've become a leaner team over the last 10 years, doing more work with less resources. And so that was a big question for us in kind of evaluating on whether or not this was going to be a good fit for Pennsylvania. And I will say, for my sister states out there, I think the beauty of this collaboration with All In specifically is Ryan makes this so easy, right? I mean, I kind of like to say it's like Field of Dreams. All In builds it, and then we show up, we come to play. And so for us, it's been, there's a bit of a lift with creating we have a letter of understanding, a memorandum of understanding, and then getting all that correspondence out to all the campus presidents to announce the launch of the challenge. But it's been, for us at Department of State, such an incredible benefit, because imagine we launched our challenge in the beginning of February of 2020. Within a month, actually, probably one of the last public engagements that I did was the Pennsylvania Student Voting Summit in Pittsburgh. In the very beginning of March, we collaborated with All In and Johanna at Campus Election Engagement Project and Campus Vote Project with Chuck Black, and we collaborated with them. They held 2 student voting summits, one in Pittsburgh and one in Philadelphia, and I was able to attend the one in Pittsburgh. And that was kind of our launch. That was our time to appear in front of administrators, but more importantly, students, to let them know about the challenge. And then COVID happened, right? And so all of Pennsylvania shut down on March 16th. And so for us at that time, Pennsylvania had just launched Act 77. Act 77 had just passed in October of 2019, which allowed for mail-in ballots for the first time in the history of the Commonwealth. And so we had this watershed legislation it was the biggest change to our election code in 80 years. And then the whole state went on lockdown. And then on top of that, we had to move our primary that would have happened in a presidential year in April back until June 2nd. So there were these massive global events that occurred that impacted young people and impacted young people's ability to vote in elections. And for many of them, their first time voting in elections during a presidential cycle. And so for us, the beauty of having just launched this program was that we had a meaningful connection with campuses across Pennsylvania and a way to do outreach to campus presidents and administrators to let them know about mail-in ballots and to answer frequently asked questions about how students were going to be able to vote, if they were registered in Pennsylvania but lived in another state. And so that was so important to us as a state, to have those clear lines of communication, and Ryan was such a great partner in all of that. The other piece of it, I would say, just from a programmatic perspective, those of us who represent kind of Secretary of States or Department of States, we do a lot of work from, campaign finance to some of us, my team does lobbying disclosure, and we do civic engagement, and we do election administrations and petition filing. And so in the width and breadth of our daily lives, it can be hard to carve out time to talk about what I call kind of the fun stuff, the work that I love to do, which is youth civic engagement, And having a program like the Pennsylvania Campus Voting Challenge gives us the space to prioritize youth civic engagement. And another piece of it, Ryan and I have regular check-ins, and he's just been an incredible thought partner. One thing I wanted to see in Pennsylvania, I'm continuing to advocate for, is a greater collaboration across high schools and campuses. In Pennsylvania, as I'm sure in many of your states, not all schools are funded equitably. So we have great disparities in resourcing with, between high schools, but also campuses. But campuses are often much more well resourced than our high schools. And so I have a vision of, creating greater collaboration between our high schools and our campuses, which are oftentimes very close to each other in a city or in a town or in a geographic region. And so due to that conversation with Ryan, and kind of his conversations with our wonderful partners, our campus advocacy partners, we were able to rebrand the last summit that we had. It was a virtual summit, which was our Pennsylvania Youth Voting Summit that was held this past fall. And that was open to high school students. And we had actual high school students who collaborated and were presenters on that, along with, college and university students. So that's something that we're trying to build in Pennsylvania, a movement for youth civic engagement. Because like I like to say, it's really, we're just getting the high schoolers, they'll end up on our campuses, and we want to build that lifelong love of civic engagement and passion to be an engaged Pennsylvania citizen. So I don't know where I am on time, but
Right on time, Tiffany. Perfect. And before we turn it to questions and quickly, one point I want to mention is the steps to launching a state campus voting challenge generally are, once we have a conversation, we have a base memorandum of understanding that our legal teams go back and forth with. It takes a little bit of time, but typically there's very, very few changes on it. And once that's signed, we get prepared for a public launch, which involves the creation of a web page on the Department of State or Secretary of State's website. Often they add on to a page that might already exist, or creating a new page explaining the challenge. And we provide a lot of the resources and copy and can share examples from other states, which makes it really easy to plug that in. And as Tiffany mentioned, then outreach to campus presidents and administrators on campuses that are already participating in the All In Challenge, because they'll automatically be involved. They don't have to do any additional work. And campuses that are not yet participating in building that. And then other press, from press releases and trying to get the media to pick it up. And most of that work falls in those early steps. And then it's just continuing to do some outreach and then preparing for the award ceremony that happens every year. So just wanted to touch on those steps and now see if there are any questions that folks have for either Tiffany, myself, or both of us. And feel free to either raise your hand or just unmute yourself if you have any, or type it into the chat.
And the other thing, as we're waiting for questions, Ryan, I just want to also add, I'm glad you raised that. So from Pennsylvania's perspective, if you look at our website, if you go to votespa.com and then just type in the search bar, Pennsylvania Campus Voting Challenge, we link to the All In's website. And like Ryan said, they provide a lot of that copy for us. So from a kind of like a programmatic perspective, it is incredibly turnkey. And then we have this incredible distribution list that we can reach out to. And we reached out to that list last year to help us recruit student poll workers, because just like my colleagues who are in other, Secretaries of State's office, we need 45,000 poll workers every election cycle. So that's been such a benefit to the department and our counties.
And Zach, I saw your question come through. So in Wisconsin's context, we haven't had an official state partner yet, in part because they don't have that traditional Secretary of State or Department of State like a majority of states. So it's one of those states where we're really trying to figure out where we might be able to find that partnership at the state level. So we do have a partnership with Campus Compact, a national nonpartisan that nonprofit that works with campus presidents and administrators. And they used to have various state branches that some are being consolidated under a national arm. And so, Zach, I'm still in contact with Natalie there, and we're planning to have those celebrations for those various states where our partnership is with Campus Compact. So that will continue on, and we're continuing to find ways of who to partner with, and have done some outreach to Dr. Blank and the UW system, the technical college system, as well as the private college and university system, to see if we can get them more involved as well. And if any other questions come up after the fact as well, you can see my email there on the slide. I'll type it into the chat. Oh, so I can't type and talk at the same time. So we'll do that one more time. But we'll hang out here to see if any questions come up. And otherwise, we really appreciate you participating. And if you're interested to have a further conversation, reach out. We can have that conversation. And as I mentioned, if we can have a launch by September 1st for new challenges, we can recognize them this November for the 2020 election. Otherwise, we can develop plans to have that launched in early 2022 in preparation for that election. And the award ceremony for the 2022 election will happen in November 2023, which seems like a really long time away. But as we all know, in the election space, somehow it seems to always be upon us again. And Tiffany, any final thoughts or comments from you?
I would just, what Nike said, like, just do it. It's July, it's July, it's middle of July. It's totally doable to get on the line with Ryan, hash it out, get an MOU going. It's totally doable to launch by September. I think, Ryan, we started having serious talks around probably October, November of 2019. And then we did it by February. And we probably would have launched a little earlier, but Department of State had some back and forth with the governor's office. We were figuring out like the governor's signature and the secretary. So it was like little things like that. But I mean, honestly, if you're a state, I can't say enough good things. One, it's easy, right? It's easy to do. Allen's developed the playbook. It's turnkey for us as state administrators. And it pipes you into this incredible network of campuses across your state. Here in Pennsylvania, it's our Commonwealth. And again, it's so much. I would say as a state administrator, I had no idea the landscape of kind of campus civic engagement. I had no idea the SEEPs of the world existed. I had no idea that there was so much investment happening into kind of campus civic engagement. And this was an entire population that we weren't talking to directly. I mean, here at Department of State, we have an amazing election stakeholder group that we've been convening since like 2015, but campus young people are not represented. They're probably the only demographic that isn't represented in that stakeholder group. So we were missing an entire conversation. So again, I can't say enough wonderful things about our partnership. But for states that are kind of on the fence, you don't want to miss this next 2-year cycle. So I would say just do it and reach out to Ryan. And also, I'm happy, Ryan, feel free to put my email in the chat too. I'm always happy to connect with other states that want to just talk about our experience as Pennsylvania. I'll put a plug in for GCA if you're interested in talking about our high school civic engagement program too. We'd love to talk about it. I'll say it should be a buy one, get one free type deal. Do a high school civic engagement program and do a campus civic engagement program too, because really they build on each other.
Well, thank you so much, Tiffany. Always appreciate your partnership. And we will share this recording and the slides after this as well. And feel free to reach out to either Tiffany or me, and hope to hear from you and start a conversation about a state challenge in your state. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for having me, Ryan. Take care, everybody.